we wanted to like pack this stream and like show a couple different workflows for integrating
Mhm.
the 3D and 2D and vice versa, 2D and 3D. And I think you bring another side of the coin that like I don't bring, right? Like I mean, you're a professional map painter. That's what you do. And so
Yeah.
your workflow is not, I don't think just a little different. I think it's quite a bit different than how I would potentially approach something. So
Yeah.
I think it's good.
I
I think it's good for
yeah.
people to see this, both of them together, not like not separate. But
Mhm.
whereas
Mhm.
somebody like me, I think I would, I always like on the last
Mhm.
challenge. It was like the simple challenge, like where you got like where we did
Yeah.
the like converting to snow. I was joking around with Callum and he
Mhm.
was like, how would you approach it? I was like, I'd re-render the scene, dude. Like I would I would not do it at
Yeah.
all. Like I wouldn't do
Yeah.
that, and so I think that this is like, a really good, again, apologize everybody for the little delay and the mix up, but
Yeah.
I think this dovetails in really nicely to like how I work,
Mhm.
but in a different way, and it's good for people to
Yeah.
see. And I mean, you're actively participating in the competition, whereas I'm showing a piece of work that's a little, not only not
Mhm.
in the competition but removed from the competition. So I think it's good
Yeah.
to see like how you would approach it. So yeah, man, let's just
Yeah. The
get back on track and have some
yeah.
fun, and hopefully
Yeah.
everybody's
I've got
still
a
there.
bunch of stuff to go over.
I know you
Yeah.
like,
Uh,
we went over all this, everybody, so too bad for you now. Um,
well,
no,
I'll
I'm
go
kidding.
over it really quick. I'll go over it really quick. This is what I've been kind of working on for the competition a bit, just kind of art directing the crap out of it. I'm a big believer of art direction for when you're doing personal work or big projects or whatever. And the way I kind of started it off was just I just wanted to do research on just what is cyberpunk. Because like the norm that you kind of see a lot of is just big giant cities with neon lights, which is fine, but I kind of wanted to go a little bit of a different route of showing like what is cyberpunk life down on the main ground area with some kind of structure or city. So when I was making these two art boards, I was just going based on like some movie reference ideas that kind of have that world already built. So you can kind of see like what colors are, what neon lights look like, what the stories are, the different environments. And so in this, I was just coming up with some basic story ideas, nothing too fancy. But everything in all those between artificial intelligence, robots versus humans. And I kind of wanted to play with that a little bit. And so I found some of these old classic retro 60s paintings that were by like Sid Mead and Sid Dutton and some other concept artist. I don't know who, sorry. Um, but it was kind of interesting just to see the correlation of what something sci-fi for structures would be versus the people in that world would be. Because I think it's kind of interesting to as a map painter personally and as a visual artist, it's always interesting on how society influences our environment and vice versa. And that's what these few references kind of are. And with studying it, I was just looking at lighting and color palette, composition, story, just to have some basic ideas that I really fell in love with. And then from there, from watching those movies, just picked up color palettes and shots that I really admired. And then from there, sampling some colors that I thought were kind of cool. And part of doing this, I think that's helpful is you can kind of study of the shots of what makes those shots and compositions so unique in each one based on like color values, patterns. Like you have blue, red, and then back to blue in the midtones. And then like you have different depth of field where you have lights that are coming at you, and then one in the distance, and that person's looking there. So everything's kind of story related based on light in this movie. But it was kind of interesting to kind of pick up on that a little bit for a nighttime dark feel to it. And then went and watched Tron, and it was kind of the same thing, but with Tron, a lot of it was just based on shape. A lot of it was just shape and color, which I thought was kind of interesting within the movie. And it broke the dimension between realism, the reality, and something fictional. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And then one of my favorite movies is just AI of a robot boy who thinks he's human, so he wants to, or sorry, he thinks he's a robot, so he goes to the robot world and observe it, but he ends up actually being human, which I think is kind of an interesting story in itself. And while at all of these, just studying the colors of stuff, and then I accidentally found this reference that I thought was really cool because it's got like the reflections, it's got the neon lights, you've got different types of light in here from something very exposed to something very diffused. You got the reflections, you have water on glass, you have like concrete, metal. It just has everything in this one image to just study and look at. And then from there, I kind of built it out into watching a really good movie called Heat. If you haven't watched it, watch it. It is absolutely phenomenal. Um, Jimmy and I have been talking about this a little bit lately of just like every shot is just a story in itself, and it's so well composed. The color grading's beautiful. Every shot is just beautiful in its own sense. I mean, the contrast in this, like just white and black, and then black, white, black and white, and just it's so well done.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's
Um,
like one of those films that, like, I mean, I'm older, you know,
mm,
so I mean, I think,
yeah,
I think I saw this in the theater, you know, but like,
that'd
I
be
don't,
amazing.
I don't know, like, how many people like it's a bit underrated
Hmm.
cases, but dude,
Definitely.
like, it's super great film. I mean, cinematography is amazing,
Mhm.
and it's like, I mean, if you're looking for like that kind of heist film, it is, you know,
Mhm.
super well done.
Yeah.
Just yeah,
Mhm.
everything about it is really pretty.
And this worked really well with what I was trying to go for in here, a little bit of just the story wise. So that's what this movie was for me, was just kind of taking that story. So what I'm going with is these robots who are doing a bank robbery, but they have human faces. And I'll show you what I've got in 3D soon of that. Um, but I think this is kind of cool because um, when looking at Cyberpunk, like everyone tends to generally do like big giant cities with nothing but just colors all over the place. And I think that's unique in its own way. If you're going on different kind of environments, if you're like in New York City or if you're in Tokyo, the types of colors that are there are going to be very different based on the environment. And even like the cluster of how much holograms and stuff there is going to vary as well. And so I kind of found some references that I really liked. This is an old piece that I did like 6, 7 months ago. And the reason I have this is in my own work, I like to be the work that I recently did that's the highest quality, if that makes sense. And for me, this one is one of the top quality artworks that I've done in terms of blending and color and composition and story. So I want to make sure that I beat my own self from something I did 6, 7 months ago. But at the same time, I learned a lot of techniques from this that I can utilize in making my new scene. And these other references were just kind of having that world together of robots and cyberpunk and a little bit of that city. And the reason I like this is to me, this feels like very near future. Like this could be in like the next 10 years, um, rather than something that's going to be like 100 years from now where it's just nothing but like Blade Runner style. Um, and these were kind of cool because it's got that heist feel as well based on the movie of police and robots and mechanics and something in the near future. It's got nice color palettes that you can kind of study a little bit. So everything in this was just to kind of get an idea of elements and pieces and story and just get things that are correlating together. I think when you're art directing stuff, you need to have stuff like that because it helps visualize overall. Like from a distance, you can see everything belongs in the same world. Even the movie Heat, it just fits in with everything here. And then from there, I went and I did not build this robot. I wish I could, but I'm not. And this robot is from Turbo Squid. And with it, I went and just retextured it a little bit and played with the colors on it. And the inspiration for that was from the movie Chappie. I absolutely adore that movie. If you haven't seen it, I really recommend to see that as well. And so the inspiration for this robot was from that of just like the colors on it. It's a little bit ghetto, a bit gangster on it. And I just think that was kind of unique to have that. Um, so everything on that robot, I just went and just colored it up a bit, added a whole bunch of typography on it. Like one is just bring home the bacon. Such a good saying. Um, but it kind of has that feeling a little bit. And um, I think you've heard that saying before, bring home the bacon. But that's kind of where I'm at with this. And then after doing that, I went and kind of just found plates that I liked. But this is the one that I'm choosing and kind of banking off of what Jimmy was doing, where you take the plate and you put it back in 3D, and that way when you're building your scene, you'll get those same colors. So when doing that, just looking at this plate, I was just trying to think of, okay, what can I do? What can the composition be? Where would I place my elements? Like the robots here. This could be a cop car there, another one there pointing inward. And we have a nice three-point perspective and a story with it. And then going like, okay, what do I need to remove? That way I can build my scene and my environment and understand what's going on. This is going to be a lot of Photoshop work to like clean up all that, but that's just the idea. And then in here, this Photoshop file is doing nothing but just kind of getting myself set up a little bit of what I need to do. I've got my reference. I really love this reference. I got this from a photographer on Instagram, and I think that's hating about this. I think that's snow and not rain because it's very chunky. But the reason I like this reference is because it's got like the lights from the cars, and you can see how that light interact on the wet pavement. This I'm gonna say that's snow, so the snow, and then like you got the different colors in here, and these two lights are very different, so you can kind of study that and pick up from that. And I know some people have had some questions on how do you do UI stuff, so I'll show you a few tricks that I've kind of developed and figured out in a bit. But from there, just kind of drawing my composition and of where I want things and understanding like, okay, what can I do? What can I get away with? What can I cheat? For example, like I don't want to deal with removing all those people, so I'm going to put a van in front of all of that, so I don't have to go and like redo it all because I don't want to. My time can be utilized in doing something else.
I mean, I think that's
Um,
like I think that's like a really good thing to like talk about is like
mhm,
how do you deal with like I mean there's because this is a competition, right? And there's a time
mhm.
frame, and some
Yeah.
people might be starting later or sooner, or you're doing it in your free time. Is like you have to, I think you have to like kind of pick your battles. I always think about it like that. Like you have to
Mhm.
you can't always do it all. And so
Yeah.
I think the way you're approaching that, is like really good. I think
Mhm.
for me, I think there's a couple different ways that one could approach that. You could place
Yeah.
either you could place more relevant characters in front of them and they get pushed to the
Mhm.
back and will help just make a crowd, Or I think like
Yeah.
like what you talked about, like you strategically start placing 3D objects in front of that.
Mhm.
But either way, I think it's something
Mhm.
that everybody sh- is going to deal with either personally and or professionally. And so you have to, be aware of that and say, okay, like, um, I'm not going
Mhm.
to be able to accomplish that. So
Yeah.
how can I work with it?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Because it just I'm busy during the day working on freelance stuff, so I only have time at night for this. So like one of the reasons I picked this is because I already have all that reflection stuff in there. I don't need to go and remake it. So if I place my police car right on top of this, as long as my perspective is matching,
Yep. Yep.
I've already got everything there.
Yeah.
I don't need to go and rebuild it. I
Yeah.
can add to it instead. And that's kind of what I'm trying to go with a little bit with having like this there, another one there, maybe put a person walking here instead or whatever. But that's kind of the idea of what I'm going with. Just less work uh, to do in Photoshop.
I don't even
But
know if
that's kind of
like
the
when I think
idea,
about it,
really.
like, and I think about like your workflow and like my workflow together. Like, I don't even know if I think about it as like less work. It's kind of like
It
just smarter work. It's like don't I mean,
it it's smarter work, but it's also like because I think just because I don't have to go and replace all this and make sure like that line
yeah.
goes to there and rebuild all that. I can just paint in a little bit and take like 5 minutes to make sure this looks really good. Just push it in a little bit. And then when I put the 3D on top, it should, as long as it covers up as much as possible,
Hmm. Hmm.
it's less work I have to go and paint,
Well, right. I mean, you could.
essentially.
There's so many
Yeah.
things that you could do here, right? Like in terms of
Yeah.
like if you're building that kind of scene, one would expect that the cop car wouldn't perfectly pull in like straight like this,
Yeah.
So you can place
Hmm.
that cop car. That car now is part of
Hmm.
the scene,
Yeah.
which is to your benefit, right? So now that's just one
Hmm.
less thing that you're taking off your plate, and that you can work.
Exactly.
And it's super helpful in terms of like you're right, you do have the reflections now working for you, right? So
Hmm.
you can match your 3D stuff to that, and
Yeah.
that's really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Um, and then with it, I also really like this this reference because this plate image actually from MattePaint because it's already got like all the rain in it, kind of like that reference. And it's got like these nice lights on here and everything, so it's already got that vibe of like a cyberpunk area in the middle of Manhattan or New York or wherever.
Hmm.
It's got all the colors and everything, and I could put like a hologram in front of this or something. I don't know. I can play a lot with this. Um, so I think this kind of works well. And then
So we got a couple.
yeah,
We have a
here's
couple questions. So Maria's talking
Mhm.
about. She wants to know, how do you? She has a little bit of a hard time like moving away from a thumbnail idea to a finished piece. I mean, any tips? I mean, I think,
Mhm.
for me,
Mhm.
my thumbnails suck. So I don't
Same
really.
here. I
So like
mean,
I really don't worry. Like
that's my thumbnail.
yeah, right. Like so like mine wasn't too much different. So I
Mhm.
don't spend much time
Mhm.
thumbnailing out. For me, it's really just a roadmap, and
Yeah.
I quickly don't use that thumbnail for much of anything else except,
Yeah.
I think like, this gets back to a little bit of our early conversation. That's like something that, it's kind of hard because right now you're in a competition and people are asking to see like works in progress. So you share your thumbnails, but like your thumbnail is not
Mhm.
something that you would ever show a client, right? Like in
Right.
for the most part, it's like that's just
Mhm.
for you. And so,
I mean,
you know, not that,
I've done thumbnails. Like to me, this is my thumbnail.
yeah.
Like it would be the same way for I've done this for clients for matte paintings as well, where I write things like this, and it gets the idea straight to the point of what you're doing, what you're thinking, how you're thinking, and that way they can then see it as well for clients of like, oh, you
Yeah.
know what,
Yeah.
I don't like this person here, move it here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
boom, like communication solved, and it's a bloody stick figure,
Yeah. Yeah.
like good enough.
Yeah.
So there's nothing wrong with that.
So I would just
Um,
say, like,
yeah,
in answering that, like,
yeah,
I think you have to,
mhm,
like, you have to just, I mean, it sounds easy, like, you just have to move on. Like, I mean, obviously you
mhm,
can't, like, you can't
yeah,
stay in the thumbnail land forever, so you have to move on.
yeah,
And like, I think part of it is, you know, you develop certain
um,
skills over time that allow you to kind of move on. uh, so I think there's, I think
uh,
people might get stuck in thumbnail land for a couple reasons. Maybe there's like,
mhm,
you know, you're not quite, you know, ready skill wise to do that next step.
mhm,
And that's always, that's challenging. I mean, but that's everybody. You know,
yeah,
and I think one thing is that, like, you know, no matter how good you are, you're like always still learning. So
mhm.
you just move on and like just go
And
for it.
and also find references for everything. Like for this, one's just strictly for story ideas. Another one in this, all how I got those colors, I just color picked it from all of these
Yep.
and put them together. And then like I found one reference that's just for light, like this, and that will tell me everything I need to know for making my neon lights and my holograms. Like just that one reference, I can study the fall off, the ping lights, the edge lights, the rim lights, how it works in water versus cement versus metal versus glass. That one reference gives me everything. And then I've got like my color palettes of what colors are kind of in that world of cyberpunk. And then I have a real life photograph of that mood and feel and tone of that. And again, there's my hologram information right there, based on two different types of light, something that might be like a person or a figure versus something of like any kind of big light like this. So find references for things like that. It also helps to find other concept art that show that world and that same world idea that you're um and that's why I was saying before, like he with all these references and even with mine in there of an old work and with the movie Chappie and the robot that I just textured, the movie Heat falls in place in terms of color palette overall. So if you're stuck on a thumbnail, pick the one that you like the most that you can look at and say, yes, I'm confident in that,
Mm,
and go from there.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then from that, build your reference like this that you can go back to. Have references for everything. It will make your life so much easier because you can always go back and study it. Like for example, on this van, I love the wheels idea. I'm going to use that idea. I think that's brilliant to put that on a cop car instead. I think that's really, really cool. So now I have a reference of somebody else doing it, and I can kind of bank off of that idea a little bit. And then like here's another idea for like cops for holograms on them. So you can kind of take things like that and study how it works. And I know some people might be like, "Oh, that's stealing." Well, yeah, yeah, it is, but it's how you steal. So look at references like this and go, okay, what do I like? What do I not like? What would work well in my idea? And how do I take it and reinterpret it to be in my own way? And that will help you get started and going well. And then, oh yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah, man. I mean,
yeah,
I totally agree with you. I mean, I think, you know,
yeah,
I didn't share a ton in this. I mean, we shared kind of
mm,
maybe more reference stuff when I did the cover art, but you know, even in this last image that I shared earlier tonight,
um,
like I was looking at, like, I don't know. You guys all know, like, if you saw my other live chat, I like to look at like nerdy like military installations and stuff like that. And so I was looking at like HARP. It's like this military installation in Alaska for how the wires might work. So anybody can look
mm,
up, you know, HARP, and
mm,
you'll see. It's just like this field of kind of instruments and
Hmm.
was thinking about, okay, like what if there's like a field of cables that these things are like punching up
Hmm.
through. So I think it's just stuff like that. And then
Yeah.
Jonathan says, how do you budget your time when it comes to your matte paintings? Is there a structure that you set up for yourself? uh,
That's a little bit of a tricky one. So like if that one's more like client based, I would say. So
hmm,
that question. So a lot of it is I can't give you a specific answer because a lot of it's based on what the plate is, the footage, what they're asking for, if it's a landscape versus something foreground or whatever, and how much paint work there is.
hmm,
So for something like this, where I would have to clean up all this and redo the buildings in the background, like that could easily take from a day of matte painting of it looking really, really bad and cheap to maybe 2, 3 weeks where you get the time to refine it.
yep,
So Conrad has a post about how do you come up with your budget and calculate your hours and your cost of time. I highly recommend go reading that because he explains that literally freaking perfectly. So go read it, and that will help. And another part is also time yourself. I've done this many times on my own pieces. I've gone and I've timed myself on how long did it take me to get to this level this quick,
yep,
and
yep,
and time yourself. And that will kind of give you a little bit of information on, okay, what's something I lack the most? What's something I can do the most? Like for me, this part, for this, the Photoshop part took me like 2 weeks to get it this good. The 3D stuff took me like 3 weeks, and it's because I'm not a good 3D artist. I'll be very blunt and honest about it. Like if I could live without 3D, I would. Um, so for me, like I want to do as much as I can in Photoshop. And that's why I do this kind of a thumbnail for me where I can plan this to go, okay, how much is 3D, how much is 2D, and what can I do in 3D to cover up the areas of the 2D that I don't want to go and repaint, like
mm,
this
mm.
car. It just kind of plan it a little bit and just talk to yourself. Talking out loud also helps. I know it sounds weird, but just talk to yourself
Yeah, so
and
like,
plan it.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
I agree with all that stuff. I mean, for me, it's a little bit different. I don't know.
yeah,
I'm OCD and have anxiety, so I usually try to get to a point where like I can go to bed and not think about the like whatever the image is.
yeah,
So whatever that point is,
yeah,
that's how much I do. I
yeah,
usually at something like that, I do the same thing as Ian was talking about. Sometimes I'll keep like a timer.
mhm,
Like I
mhm,
usually have like working notebook next to me, and I'll kind of write down
yeah,
what I have left to do on an image, and then I'll
mhm,
check those off as I'm going through the process.
yeah,
If it's getting tight on time, then what I do is I start giving myself time to do that. Like, okay, like you have 20 minutes to do this,
mm,
whatever that is, whether it's 3D or whether it's 2D. So if it's like 3D
mhm,
stuff, it's like, okay, you have 20 minutes to scatter
yeah,
plants and get that all set up. I think that's
yeah,
like a good thing to get in the habit of doing, but the reason I make a list and like physically write it down is because I think when you get in the moment of doing any task that like you're focused on, then that
mm,
like you start to forget. I think you can easily
yeah,
start to forget things. So for me, what works well is like writing down, even if it's on like a post-it, I'll write down like what I have left.
mhm,
Usually it's not on a
yeah,
post-it. Usually I'm like writing in my notebook and I'm saying, okay,
and
like,
yeah,
yeah, I'm saying, okay, I have this, and this left to do, and then I'm done.
yeah,
And then if it's like I said, if it's getting close on time or time crunch, then I do what you talked about, which is I just start giving myself time. Like,
mm,
set a timer on your phone, and when that goes off, you're done.
mhm,
You're done. I mean,
yeah,
I mean, it sounds harsh, but like you kind of have to be done, right? Like because
yeah,
if you're up against the wall, then you have no more time to spend on it. That's just it.
mm,
It's
y-
just
yeah.
over. I think it,
and plan it a little bit.
yeah, and then
Um,
I think if you plan it, and I think if you do those exercises to yourself, you'll notice that you'll just naturally over time get faster. Like you won't lose quality. You'll you'll just get faster at doing that stuff. And I don't think it's a matter of like, um, how can I say this? Like I don't think it's a matter per se of like, um, you're faster. I guess it's just like you're just more efficient in a way, right? Like
yeah,
you
and
do
give
it.
yourself time with it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say like
Yeah.
don't expect to be like super fast right away. Like
Hmm.
I think that that
Yeah.
takes, and
To
I think it depends on like like what you're doing. Like I mean when it comes to my personal work, like
mhm.
Ian knows this and probably like you know Callum and Conrad. I'm pretty slow. Like I'll admit
Mhm.
that. Like I just don't like
Yeah.
like I mean part of it is I'm slow for the creative process. Like if I'm not feeling creative, like we've talked about this before, I usually don't force it. Like
Mhm.
I walk away.
Yeah.
And obviously you don't have that luxury when you're doing client work or you're at your day job or something
Yeah.
like that. You have to push through it, and so you might be able to like take a 10-minute break and
Yeah.
go for a walk, but you got to come back down and sit down. So I think the best thing you can do is
Mhm.
just start setting timers for yourself and
Yeah.
just plow through it.
And plan it. Yeah.
Yeah, just plan it out.
Another thing that I kind of did for this competition is I went through all the images and just looked at them, and that was like one day for me, just to go and just look at it and go like, what do I like? What do I not like? What can I use? What can I reuse? What are elements that I like? If you're doing buildings, like you could put this inside of a building to make it look like there's an open market or whatever.
Mm, mm.
Just get creative with it and just look and study stuff. Like you could turn that easily into a hologram.
Yeah, yeah.
Easily. Any of the stuff you could turn into a hologram. I mean, you already have a black background, and I mean, you just screen it, and there you go. So you just have to kind of look at things and just think about it a little bit.
I mean,
And
this is where like,
yeah,
the balance of 2D and 3D comes into play, right? Because
yeah,
if even if I had like a bunch of 3D buildings, I probably wouldn't choose to put lights in all those and attempt to do that. Like I can
mhm,
go back to like that image you had of Las Vegas and
yeah.
go like couple back, like, or yeah, the
Um,
nighttime one,
mhm,
right? You can like start clipping facades
yeah,
of buildings and overlaying those in layers in Photoshop and keeping the lights, but getting rid and putting that in there, and
mhm,
it will look just the same
yeah,
as it will look better and more natural than if you were to go around and try to place lights in your 3D model. Like
yeah.
that would be,
'Cause that's
yeah,
that's what I did for this. I
yeah,
just went and covered, put in lights on all of that.
of course. I mean, it's
Even
like,
the reflection was one photo. I just put it in, color matched it, moved on.
yeah, yeah. No,
Um, yeah,
it's how it should be done. I
and it
mean,
works.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah,
also how it should be done. Especially, I mean,
yeah,
especially if you're like in the background, that background stuff. Like you don't want to.
um,
That is like
yeah,
not necessary to be.
mhm,
I think that's something
yeah,
too about like becoming like good in 3D is deciding when to use it and when not to use it.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
Right? Like,
Um, which is actually what I'm trying to do with this a little bit. I've been just putting the camera around a little bit in 3D just to go like I where is it? Like I put the camera inside the car to see if I could do something with that, and obviously it looks terrible. So like, okay, don't do that.
hmm,
And then like put the robots in different distances and colors and just see what it looks like. Um, and kind of get an idea of what can I do with the objects that I have. Um, and then like for the mask for the idea that I'm doing of the bank robbery, I use the actual faces of the actual actors from the movie Heat
that's so funny.
because I'm going based on the idea
That's awesome.
of instead of it being humans, it's just robots, and then instead of it
Oh,
being
like instead of
robotic
the
masks
hockey
like
mask?
this,
Yeah.
yeah,
Awesome.
just flip it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's super
Um,
cool.
but with ideas and thumbnails and whatever, like pick a base plate and build off of it. You don't have to go and rebuild everything from scratch. You don't necessarily need to do that. You everything that's digital, as one person explained it to me, is it's nothing but tricks. It's all it is.
I know, like
So just
it's so
learn
funny.
the tricks.
It's so funny that you like say that because like I think even when I was talking earlier, like I feel a little bad because it feels very much like I'm
Mhm.
talking about things as like a matter of fact. When maybe a few years
Yeah.
ago or so it also matter of fact, so I can like sympathize with like
Yeah.
how everybody's feeling, but
Hmm.
it really is just like
Yeah.
trick after trick after trick. It's like it's not,
And
you
and the
know.
benefit of it is I'll show you guys a few tricks in Photoshop. Um, the benefit with figuring stuff out as well is because and I'll use me as an example, and you know what? I'll even use Jonathan because you know how to like this mohawk. Like, I mean, that's freaking amazing. Um, because you learn how to do so many different things over time, you can build up your library of tricks on how to do stuff, and you
Mm,
can get quicker and faster and reutilize those tricks in different ways
yeah, yeah.
to get different kind of results and concepts and ways of doing things.
I guess that's what I meant.
And
I guess that's what I meant
yeah,
earlier when you were talking about speed is like whatever somebody's feeling like now, like with like if you're feeling
mhm,
slow, it it doesn't last forever because it's just like okay, well, you did it that
yeah,
first time and then you'll do it the next time and then but you're it's kind of like muscle memory like riding a bike, you know, it's like you
mhm,
don't necessarily ride the bike the same way every time, but you still know how to ride the bike.
mhm,
And so um
yeah,
yeah, I think that that's like
yeah.
super critical, you know.
Yeah, exactly. So give yourself time, don't stress so much. But here's a few things I'll show you
I
to
think
kind of
like
get you started for
I
like
think like
Cyberpunk. So,
it's not like talked about very much too, but I think like people should
mhm,
like how do I say it? Like I mean, I talk about it at work a lot. You know, like you have to be allowed to fail too. You know, like I think
mhm, yeah,
you know like right like I don't know like I think somehow like sometimes we live in a society where like failure is not like an option or something like that, but
mhm,
like it's really I think it's how you perceive that failure and
yeah,
turning that into a successful thing, right? Like I mean,
mhm,
you see this with like pro athletes all the time, and like you know the top. You know, I'm thinking of like recently
mhm,
during the lockdown, I watched like the Jordan documentary, and like however you feel about Jordan, what some of the best things about it was like those times where like he failed, and it just made him be like,
mhm,
dude, like it made him better in the long run. So I
mhm,
think that like
absolutely.
I always say that to myself is like, you know, okay, like this might not be successful or it might not be like what you thought success was
Yeah.
going to look like. But that it
Failure is literally success in
yeah,
itself.
yeah. Like I think in the long term it pays off in dividends.
Mhm.
You know,
It,
like it really does.
oh yeah, absolutely. It does. And one of the things that will help you if you're trying to like get into matte painting and visual effects is I do this all the time. Like I don't like to talk about this, but I'll show you what I mean. I go to Dylan Cole's website
I don't do this. But this is all you, Ian.
or yeah,
But I do think that
like
it's like I do think that it's like something that like people don't like or that is taken for granted is like you know people don't share and or post failures very often, right? Like or you don't talk about them,
yeah.
but to assume that
Mhm,
like that people don't have these is it's just not,
mhm.
you know, it's not a reality. So
Well, yeah, and one of the things that you can do, I mean, the trick that I do to get build up speed and that stuff is I look at three artists only, pretty much. Dylan Cole, Duso, and Stephen Messing. Those three are like gods to me. And the reason they are is because they know how to interpret them. So when you look at stuff like this, yeah, your first impression is going to be holy crap. But if you stop and look at it and go, okay, what? So I'll see like the sky, and then you can look and go like, okay, how is his lighting working? Why do we see the rain like this? Oh, wait, we have a reference of that literally in this. Like there it is. That's
Mm,
what
mm.
he took the reality of something and put it digital, and now you have that exact same effect. So you kind of have to look at what some of these artists are doing like this, and that is something that helps improve their work and make it better, is they know how to reinterpret reality in a digital form.
Yeah, I think
And that's why I like,
if you go
yeah.
back to his top piece, it. I mean, that
Mhm.
does. I mean, there's a lot of sense to that,
Yeah.
right? Like if you look at the roof over here on the left side of that building on that tower, like you get the
Oh,
sense that the rain is
yeah.
like bouncing off, right? Like if it's raining
Mhm. Yeah.
super hard and like when rain hits something, it kind of like and it's raining so hard it almost like appears to be like kind of in a way like rebounding, like bouncing.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
see that so here on the left hand side of that shorter tower,
Mhm.
like it's hitting that
Yeah.
up there, right there,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah. Just
rain.
that edge.
Yeah, that rain hitting that edge, and
Hmm.
just those small things like that is so critical
Hmm.
to. But also too
It
like
does.
like really smartly understanding and going back to that reference image, right? Like it's not that like just some
Hmm.
rain filter was applied to this all over, right? Like that
Right.
realistic, right? Like you only see the rain where the light is refracting through those raindrops,
Exactly.
so you only see it in those areas. And so
Hmm.
i
Exactly.
I think that's where like looking
Um,
looking at artists like this and those other guys that you mentioned. I mean, obviously
mhm.
those dudes are huge. I mean,
Yeah.
there's other people, but you know,
They,
I
they just
yeah,
they just know how to rework it and get it working the right way.
I think
Um,
I mean I think it's important for people to understand is like these guys are also looking at the same thing that's available to everybody else, which is
mhm.
like you already showed real life images. Like
Mhm.
it's that
Yeah.
simple. Like it's not
Yeah.
just go look at a photo. I mean, it's
Yeah.
if you want to know how like
Um,
rain behaves in light, then look at a
mhm.
photograph of that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I talk to myself all the time with things like this, and that's how I figured out so many tricks
Mm.
in Photoshop was just look at references. Okay, I didn't really go and look at references of photographs. I looked more at Dylan Cole, Stephen Messing, Dussault, and I just looked at like, okay,
It's okay. I'll let
how
you
did they do
slide.
that digitally? Yeah. Like how did they do that digitally so that way I can try to figure it out? And then I went and looked at photographs that were similar, just of those effects.
Yeah, yeah.
And like that rain effect, like I could tell you right now, knowing how to knowing the in and outs of Photoshop, like I could tell you right now, step by step, what to do for that.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because I've done it so many times, that you just know what to do.
Oh, yeah. And you're gonna
Um,
work in InDesign now too. So
so I'll show you some things with this a little bit. So for holograms, like for the soldiers, one of the things that you can do that I was kind of playing with a little bit, and I do things like this all the time. I just experiment. Just open up Photoshop and just experiment. I do this a lot, like a lot. And so like this was the smooth normal pass, and I just took it, put it on color dodge, and that's what I get. And already you have like a neon cyberpunk feel just with two layers, and then just change the hue and adjustment to it to kind of get something I like a little bit better. And there's one effect for you. And then if you had a mask, you can paint where you want that light to hit. And now you've got something that could work on a neon sign or if he's on the street or whatever. So that's just one layer. Another one is the position pass. This one I thought was kind of cool because of the way it reacts. Like if
Mm-mm.
this person's sitting in a puddle or something of like, I don't know, poison or something. And it kind of gives you that story a little bit of maybe they're walking in poison or fog or dense something or whatever, or like if they're walking through a hologram. So you can play with those kind of techniques and build ideas off of that just by one layer on color dodge, or you could even put it on screen and you get something a little bit different. Um, and then you just play with colors a little bit. Um, this was the ambient occlusion. It didn't really come through, uh, but I put it on multiply and just put a colorize on it. I have a tutorial through MattePaint on this as well on how to use the hue saturation. I absolutely adore this tool. I use and abuse the hell out of this thing. Same with the material ID. That one was kind of cool just to give like different colors of the soldiers. Um, and that's what that is. And I just put it on overlay, change the color a little bit, desaturate it a little bit, and now I've got something a little different. And so these are just like quick ideas of like, what do I like? What do I not like? What's working for me? What's not? What can I mix together to get something kind of unique and interesting? Um, and I do things like this all the time, just play with it. Um, like even, for example, I was going to show you guys this. So like, let's say I like this one and I found, oh, did I not do it? Oh, yes, I did. Like this effect. I went and isolated the mask itself. So if I have it, I actually went and cut them out. So you can play with these options in here for layer styles. So you can do like inner glow and change the noise or oh, is it going to give me noise? Why is it giving me noise? Okay, let's do inner shadow and do like screen and let's put a big color. Now you've got kind of like this color and whatever. Um, and you just play a little bit. And you can get, oh, that looks freaking sick. Like, there you go. Boom, done. And then we can do like, let's do a stroke. Okay, stroke does not look good. Don't do that. Outer glow. Put this on screen. Why is it giving me noise? Is this a new thing?
I don't know. You're probably in a newer version of Photoshop than I am. Since we've had that talk. I'm like,
Yeah. Oh
boo.
God. Yeah. Yeah,
No, but
it
I think
shouldn't
like
be.
I think the point that you're making is like really valid in terms of like, you know, giving yourself that time to kind of
Yeah.
not mess around, but kind of, yeah, I mean, for lack of a better word, mess around. Like, because it's how you
Yeah.
discover how to do things.
Mm,
Different for you and I and people that are doing this like all the time is that we're constantly
mm.
messing around. Right? Like
Yeah.
in my free time for years,
That was
I've
cool.
I've spent messing around. Right? Like, it's like
Mm,
you'll have a friend show you a trick and then you take that and you're like, okay, like how, like
yeah.
I have to learn this. Or it's like when you and I were talking the other day and we were talking about
Hmm.
the shadow catcher and I was like, hey man, like I can show you. I have no idea how to do it in Redshift because I don't use Redshift, but I'm pretty sure that they
Hmm.
have the same thing because people use Redshift and
Yeah.
this is not. And then sure enough, you came back and
Hmm.
you were like, dude, I got it. And it's just
Got
like
it. Yeah.
it's like, okay, yeah, like I think, part of the learning process is constantly messing around. Like you're just at the
Hmm.
computer messing
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. And the benefit to doing that is like when you mess around so much, like how Dylan Cole does like the rain.
Yeah.
Like I can just look at it and already tell you what to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like because I just know so many different ways of doing things
Now
that you can just
everybody's gonna hit you up for rain, dude.
yeah. Like here, I'll show you.
They're gonna be
Like
like,
it's
dude, show me rain.
like I'll do it right now. Like it's not going to be anything
I think I'm
complicated.
lazy and have like a
Um,
couple good like rain brushes, so
or,
I'm gonna be like
uh,
way lazier than you.
let's let's do this image because it's got like all those lights already. And like if I have a rain brush, literally,
Yeah, that's what I have. I have a rain brush, and then I just
um,
start painting it out.
yeah.
Right, like it only shows
And
up in
so
the
like
lights.
from yeah, so like from there, I would just do like filter, blur, motion blur.
Yep.
Obviously not horizontal, or you could even put it at a slight angle a little bit, play with it like that, and then like stretch it a little bit. Whoops. And then from there, I always color adjust like how much you're going to really see like that. And then the other part is you literally take the image, put it over. Come on, work. Connect it and do light color dodge. And now you're going to get it on those edges a little bit.
Yep.
And then you can like change the opacity a bit. And then you can like blur this out a bit so it like really glows. And like you can see it right there. Boom. And then like you can put up the hue saturation on this so it like really comes through like this. You can kind of see that. And I mean, already just from that, you so that's like one way you could do it. And then from there, apply your mask. And we're only going to see it in those areas of
Light,
light.
right?
So
Yep.
with your nice nifty brush, change your opacity and just play with it a little bit. And you're going to get that same realism a little bit.
Dude, I totally agree. I mean, this is exactly like what I would do. I mean,
Whoops. Um, so that's like could be one way of doing it. I can already think of maybe a few other ways that could work a little bit better. Like this way kind of works, but I'm not like 100% sold on it. So like that's one way. So you just have to kind of experiment with it and play with it a little bit, and maybe try different techniques. But that's kind of the gist of it, really.
I
Um,
think it's like great to like talk about this too because I think like one thing that like people forget when they're like integrating like 2D and 3D and vice versa
mm,
is that like the real world is not perfect, right? Like if
yeah.
like and that's like something that is like a dead giveaway right away for like either I don't know, bad 2D and 3D integration or bad 3D file. And is that it's just like any kind of anything too perfect is like
Mm,
gives it away really quick. And
yeah.
so I think that's
There's
something I
there's
think that
nothing that's too perfect.
no, I think that's like something that people should be
Yeah.
cognizant of, like when they're doing these images and when they're working through their process, is that, um, nothing in real life is perfect like that, and so,
Mm,
you want to make sure that you
yeah.
have those things uh, in your in whatever you're doing.
Mm, yeah, exactly. Um, and you just have to kind of play with it a little bit. Um, and you'll get different kind of results.
Yeah, yeah,
So a lot really depends on how you do it, how you think about it, and you just kind of have to study. And all seconds, you have a cool effect. Is it perfect to is it 100% perfect? No. I mean, like obviously, like the blur is way too much. But within a few seconds, you kind of get an idea of what to do already.
yeah, yeah.
Um, so that's kind of how you act things. Um, just play around. I spend a lot of time messing around, just doing things like this. And then one thing that I do that I know some people are gonna like put me to the stakes for is instead of saving it, I'll just delete it. Don't save the PSD file, just move on. Just if you're trying to figure out a simple trick like that, don't even save it. Just keep moving on. And that way it forces your brain to have to remember it. It
I
sounds weird,
No,
but
I mean I get
yeah,
I mean I actually kind of do get what you're saying because like if you had that
yeah.
PSD file, I'm not sure that you would even there's no way to like how can I say it?
Mm,
There's no memory file to figure out what you did, right? Unless you're
yeah,
the only way would be is if you're using like smart layers and you can go in and like see all the time, but I mean I'm not using smart
mm,
layers all the time, so
yeah,
it would almost be impossible for me to even remember how I would be doing that all the time. So
mm,
I actually don't think it's like a bad idea.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, Another thing you can do for holograms, I know some people were wondering about this, is I paint a lot of hologram stuff, and I just use layer styles. So I'll do like let's see, let's do an outer glow. I mean, already just with that, like you get a lot with it, and then you just change the color. Let's do blue because we're doing blue, uh, like that, and let's put it on screen. You can change like the noise amount quite a bit, which is kind of cool, I think, uh, based on like where it goes and the size of it and how soft. So you can really play with it and get something really cool like that. And already that, let's see, and then you could do an inner glow as well, which might work on this. Let's do a darker color. I don't think it's gonna work for me. Let's put it on normal. Yeah. So like even there, that's kind of cool. That gives you a little bit of difference in detail. So you can play a lot with this, uh, and just have fun with it. Don't be bound to it has to just be images. I mean, in this image that I won, like all those holograms and lights, that was all just hand painted. Even all the lights on coming up on the buildings like that
Yeah.
was just nothing but just those effects. Even the uplight on there. Um, I just so that's kind of how I did my holograms. You can do a lot of things like that. And then another one that I do, uh, I have my own brush presets that I like to have because of how they work. Um, Especially this one. I am madly in love with this brush because of the fall off that you get.
Mm-mm.
Um, and so, right, like this, or something like this, you can do like a filter, blur. I kind of like to mix it a little bit, or I'll do a few of these actually, where one will be like a filter, blur, Gaussian blur. I'll blur the crap out of it. The second one, I'll do filter, blur, motion blur. And that one, I'll kind of make sure I have like the right direction of light a little bit,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, like that. And I'll push it up a little bit because it's you kind of have like a cool, or maybe it's hitting a building with something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do another one, the blur, Gaussian blur. That might be smaller, and then like just play with all these filters. When it comes to concept art or matte painting for personal work, yeah, you can go do whatever the heck you want. It doesn't matter whatsoever. You can do anything. And already from that, like we have something kind of cool. And that looks like a kind of an interesting hologram. And then you could do this effect with it, where you just paint different lights or whatever into it. So I mean, from there, from a distance, that kind of looks like a hologram. So you can do things like that. Play with your different filters.
Yeah.
You can also do what is it? I can't think of it. Oh, it only works in 8-bit, but if you are in an image, let's say, I don't know, I think what was it, in LA? No, Nepal.
Geometry and basically take
Mm,
you could take the texture that they have, right? Like just the albedo, diffuse, or whatever you want to call it, and that is an emitter, and like, boom, you're done.
mm,
Like, and then you have like
yeah.
a glowing guy, and then you can like lay stuff on top of it and make it look. Yeah, I mean, you can do so many things, so many
Mm,
different ways to approach this stuff.
mm. Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
I mean,
that's what's crazy is like
the sky's the limit.
for every like 2D, and that's why I think it was so great for like you and I to do this together, is like for every 2D thing that Ian's talking about, like my mind right now is like, oh, okay, like this is how I would do this in 3D, like because
Mhm,
I for better or for worse, sometimes like I might feel more comfortable, or I might want like the light bleed, or
mhm,
whatever I'm wanting, I'm ready, not always, but there's
mhm,
definitely times that I would choose to do certain things in 3D. And I'm like, oh, okay, like when you were showing the, okay, yeah, like, making them a hologram in 3D, like they shared the models with us. Like one could easily do that, like take the diffuse texture and as an emitter and like an emission texture and put it back on, like, on the guy. Like it's
Mm.
not too hard. There's so many
Yeah,
ways,
exactly.
so many cool ways to do things.
Um, I mean, you can really go in anything like this. You just have to just be creative with it. And even like from taking an image from MattePaint on this cool object, just something like that already can work as a hologram.
Mm.
You just have to like that looks really cool. You just have to play with it, play with different effects. Also, like if you're, it only will work in 8-bit, but if you do filter gallery, I'll do this all the time. Oh, oh, there we go. Where you can get cool effects like this, and then you can like go and put this on screen, and you'll get like that is actually really kind of cool.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
you could
yeah,
get
yeah. And then if you put that on,
some
yeah,
amazing
dude.
effects. Yeah. So it really depends on what you do, how you do it, play with the settings. Um, like, what was it like that actually looks really cool. Like if you wanted to put this on the soldier's glass of on his goggles,
Mm.
like that could work really cool for an interesting texture, and then you write your hologram or whatever, your text or your copy. So you can do all sorts of things like this depending on what you're trying to go for, the effect. Like, oh, that's really cool. That's rad. Dang. Like it honestly, you can do a lot. Um, Color dodge, screen overlay, lighten, darken. Those are going to be your friends when it comes to painting holograms. And then playing with the artistic filter gallery like this. Like I really like that glass one. Like to me, I'm sold on that. Like done. Um, like I'll just color grade this really quick. Uh, let's smash this, do that, and kind of like that, right? Uh, Close enough. It's not like good coloring, but um, y- the idea is there. So something like this, and then if we put the hologram on top and on a color dodge, like there you go, one effect, and you get all this kind of interesting stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
then I could do like another one, put it on screen. And now if I put these in a group and apply a mask, I can do, let's do a smiley face. There we go. And now I can like blur it out a little bit and I've got an interesting effect. So you just have to really play with things, try things out, see what works, see what doesn't work,
Mm-mm.
take different effects like this in the pack that was provided. Like you have so many different types of holograms you could do. Even like this one's actually my favorite one. I
Oh,
love this
yeah.
one.
Dude, I mean,
I
this is
mean,
like, it's like
bloody
90% there.
hell. Yeah, literally.
Like,
Um,
literally
I
90% there.
mean, take this and just put it on screen or even color dodge, and there you go. You got something.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I mean, done. So you just really have to play with things and kind of see what worked, what doesn't. Those are tricks like I just showed you of painting it instead. So a lot of it, the only thing that's going to limit you is your mind. That's it. But anything else out there is like free range. Just as long as you understand, like I know it's my own little pet peeve, but like to put something like this in a matte painting for production is a pain in the butt. So just be aware of that. But when it comes to like personal work, yo, do whatever you want. Like it's free range. I mean,
Yeah,
these are perfect
yeah.
examples of that. And that's how like a lot of these effects are going to be done. It's just painting it, blur things, add chromatic aberration. That's always kind of a cool effect to
Mm-mm.
do. And just play with your light and colors and glows and stuff. And you should get something pretty interesting. Just be my only caution with it. If I was a judge looking at it, what I would be looking at is how are your colors reflecting and bouncing off of other things, because that's what's going to make it or break it for me, especially when it comes to city lights and whatever.
Mm-mm.
That's what's really going to help sell the piece more than anything,
I think
I
that's where,
think.
like, what we talked about earlier with what I do, like, can be really
Yeah.
beneficial for people is, having that combination, like, sending it
Mm,
through, doing, matte painting first, then sending it into
yeah.
3D, then sending it back out and doing it again, I think can
Yeah.
be like super beneficial because you'll pick
Mm,
up that stuff that like you're just talking about that like that are kind of like the giveaways and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean there's
mm,
so many things you could do.
yeah. Like I really like this Mohawk idea. So like I mean you could easily do that with this, but like I mean just paint it. Oh, I'm on black, that's why. Huh. So like hit color, hardness, do something like this to kind of get and just build it. And then I would do like another one, maybe like change the color a little bit. And those same effects of like outer glow, um, and play with it, and see what you get, and play with those that kind of stuff a little bit. You can even change the curve. So a lot of it's just going to be on like what you do and how you do it, um, and the effect that you're trying to go for. So you just have to honestly just play with it, and see what works for you.
It'll be interesting to see in
Um,
the competition like how far people. I always enjoy seeing like who is like or not who, but the pieces that are like, okay, I'm going full 2D or I'm going full 3D or, and seeing what that looks like. I don't know. I when I think of full 3D, I think of like stress right away. Like it just was like,
yeah, me too.
like I mean,
Mm,
even for myself, like somebody that's like doing it all the time, I'm like, oh, dude, it like the top, like just you doing this right now, the time to like do that in 3D. I'm like, nope, nope. Like
it would, yeah, it'd be a pain in the
it's
butt.
so not beneficial. It's like
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess beneficial if like you'll go get like a hair, do hair and then a shot. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's just not. Just
Mhm.
just paint it.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can really do a lot with Photoshop. I love Photoshop. Like I
I
want to
mean,
marry Photoshop.
I think the good thing about that too is like, right? Like, I always feel like it's less of a commitment too. Like if you
Mhm.
leave for an hour and you come back and you hate it, like you just get rid of it.
Yeah.
Whereas like
Yeah, exactly.
whereas like you do something in 3D and you hate it, you re-render it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
it's a little bit more painful.
Mhm.
I think just finding
Okay.
I think it's just like for me just all about like balance. Just finding that balance of like okay, I'm going,
Mhm.
these are the things that like I should do in 3D. These are the things I should do and tackle in 2D.
Mhm. Yeah, literally.
And I
Um,
think that'll be different for
uh,
everybody, right? Because a bit of it is based on skill set. Whereas, like,
mhm.
someone like me might do more stuff in 3D, and
Mhm.
you might do more stuff in 2D. I don't think it's
Oh,
right
yeah.
or wrong, right? And
Mhm.
I think the outcome, like you've been showing, can be equally as good in both. Um, you know,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even just this of doing a little dot, like you can do a lot with this stuff. You just have to really just think about it.
Yeah, and the
Um,
cool thing is like now you just like you just
yeah,
can like save that forever and use it forever.
yeah. There you go.
No.
Um, yeah. So you just have to kind of use your head a little bit and play with things and see what's working, see what's not, and have at it and give yourself time. I mean, that's all I can really think of, honestly, is that's kind of how I approach things.
I
Um,
think what's interesting too is like cyberpunk is like, it's something that like doesn't, right, it's a little bit of like not reality, well it's a lot of bit of not
mhm,
reality, right? Like, so if I'm looking
yeah.
so if I'm looking at that light right there that you just made, right? Like,
Mhm,
and I'm thinking about it 3D, that's like in some aspect a really difficult thing to recreate in 3D, right? Because you have a
mhm,
center that's like kind of orange, and then you have an outer that's purpley and reddish. But that
mhm,
I can't think of a lot of light bulbs that do that.
mhm.
Like
Yeah,
the
exactly.
right. I mean, if you were to use like a physical light inside of 3D, that would be
Mhm.
not a very easy thing to replicate.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It would be a pain in the butt. Um,
Because it's
but
just
that's kind of the idea. Yeah.
because right, like all like most rendering engines at this point are like meant to you know simulate
Yeah.
like real situations, and so it would be
Yeah.
a little difficult. I mean, I think you could do
Yeah.
it, but I think you doing,
Oh, there
uh,
we go. There's a hair. Sorry.
I think you doing it in 2D is much faster. I know I was thinking of like the grass
Right.
brush. Like
Mm.
I was like
Or
where's the grass brush? Yeah,
yeah.
like hair
I mean,
done.
yeah. But even like different brushes like that can give you some really cool effects. Um, just a little bit like that. So it you honestly can pretty much do anything, but that's how I approach holograms. I do it both with images, blurs, those effects like that, painting stuff.
Yeah.
I you there's many different ways, and the 2D stuff is going to be so much easier than the 3D. Just saying.
Yeah,
Just saying.
I don't know that like I can completely disagree with you. Like I said, I think
Yeah.
there's definitely times where it's like, okay, I would just do that in 3D, and no, just do that in 2D.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so I mean, I guess
I'm always like, dude,
is there any questions on online or
no, I think I not really. We're
that's
good. I think
cool.
we answered them all. I think we're just us geeking out.
Um,
It'll be I can't wait to see everybody's work. I mean, everybody's done so much already. It's gonna be just insane. Like, it's gonna be insane.
mm, um, and like play with different brushes, see what's kind of working, what's not. Have fun with it. Ooh, that's cool. But that's kind of the idea. I guess for
Are
anyone
they doing like
curious to
a?
know.
Are they? I haven't really looked. I wonder if they have like a feedback session planned. That would be cool. I don't know if they do, but if anybody's doing the contest and the judges and or Conrad or anybody do a feedback session, you guys should definitely make that a point to be a part of that,
Mhm,
because it's a you know pretty big deal.
mhm. Yeah, it is. Um, I think that's it, man. I mean,
Yeah, man, dude, we did another one. That's two for us. Boom. We should just keep doing these.
I enjoy it. I love like dissecting stuff and just kind of trying to figure out like what works, what doesn't, and why. I do it all the time. I go through Dylan's website, do Stephen Messing's, and I just try to figure it out. So if anyone ever has questions on how do you do certain tricks like this or whatever, let me know. I love figuring it out, and I would recommend you to just go have at it, have fun with it.
No, I think it was yeah, I think it
And
was like really critical for like, the competition for actually the two of us to, kind of be doing this conversation together just because I
mm,
think our workflows are I wouldn't say like completely different, but I there's definitely things that you do that I don't do, and I think vice versa. So,
mm,
I think it's
yeah, exactly.
really important to do that.
Mm. Um,
But yeah, man.
anyways, I mean, if anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to ask now or forever
Oh,
hold your
wait,
peace.
wait, wait, wait. We might have one. Okay, here it is. In which file format do you have to give the matte painting to production, like the final version? Oh, you're gonna know more about this than me, dude.
Oh,
I
oh, really quick, look at this, just with one type of brush. Oh,
done.
that's freaking dope. Look at that.
Well,
That is a sexy neon light.
now we all know what Ian's doing. I don't know what file format do
Yeah.
you have to give. I give out JPEGs. Done. Here you go.
Oh, that's like a sin.
Well, dude, I mean, I'm giving like
That's
final.
ridiculous.
I'm giving like final client. Like, here you go. It's like JPEG it is.
Either TIFFs or EXRs.
Yeah, your industry
One or the other, pretty much.
your industry is completely different than mine. I mean, maybe I'll give a TIFF. It's not very often though. It's usually a JPEG. Depends.
Yeah, it's
Mostly.
always JPEGs or
They're def.
TIFFs. Yeah,
Yeah.
but there you go.
The end.
Anyways,
So
yeah,
I think that answers that last one. So
yeah,
if you're in map painting and it's production, you're gonna give a TIFF or a
mhm,
EXR. Um,
yeah, depending on the studio, but never PNGs, never JPEGs,
yeah,
ever,
there you go.
ever.
There you go from Ian. So if you're not
Yeah,
interested in map painting and somehow you end up doing architectural visualization, probably a TIFF or a JPEG.
yeah,
What
yeah.
I don't hand out EXRs that often. I think somebody would be pissed off at me and not know what to do with it.
Yeah,
And
I had one person give me PNGs, which was a nightmare, and
I
another
don't do
person gave
that.
me JPEGs,
I
and I was
don't
like,
I don't do that.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't do the PNGs, but I have also never given an EXR. I don't know what I don't know what somebody would do with that. Probably not know what to do with it. I think partially.
nothing.
Well, I mean, I think partially right. Like in our industry, like somebody's like this is usually going into like an InDesign presentation or on a set of boards or something like that are being laid out in InDesign. So, you know, that's what I'm saying. Like most often, that is a JPEG or a TIFF.
Mm. Yeah, exactly.
It's not going in. It's not like your industry. It's not going anywhere else. So at least not
Mm,
very often. Yeah, dude, look at that. Like already.
yeah.
You're so, Ian's so saving this Photoshop file. He's a liar, guys. You're saving
Just
that.
setting up the base.
Yeah, dude,
Yeah.
you're saving that like brush like right now, dude. Don't.
Oh, I've got the brush. I know which one it is. I like
La-
that brush. I like the different colors.
you lie.
Awesome,
Cool, man. Well,
dude.
dude, awesome
Mm,
session. Everybody
mhm,
out there, I hope you guys enjoy it. If you didn't get to, I know we have a lot of people in Europe, and if you guys don't get to see it tonight, hope you guys watch it in the
mhm.
next few days.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's helpful. Both Ian and I are on the Discord channel pretty often. Ian
Mhm.
maybe a little bit more than me, but I'm there, and you can shoot us a
Feel free to
message.
reach out.
Yeah, reach out. Like
Yeah.
you know, that's what's so rad about the map paint community. I'll say that again is that like
Mhm.
everybody's like super willing to share information, and like it's not a secret. Like so, if you feel like I missed something tonight, or you were maybe unclear about something that I did or that Ian did, just hit us up. Like I'm
Mhm.
totally willing to share or have a conversation about it. So,
Yeah. And as my favorite quote says, keep moving forward.
dude, you're a master.
Yeah,
Now,
sure.
now I got to figure out how to like stop this stream. You do-
Control Alt Delete. I don't know.
Right, right. All right, guys. Well, I can't wait to see everybody's final images, and yeah,
Mm.
I do have the luxury of being a judge, so um, lucky. I get to see
Yeah,
I get to see all the work. It's gonna be pretty insane to look at. It's like 200
mm,
entries so far. Ugh, man. Whoa.
wow.
That's so much stuff.
It
And like
is.
it's all been so good so far, so I'm like,
Mhm.
man, it's gonna really come down to the nitty gritty.
It will.
Oh,
It's gonna be
Jonathan,
awesome.
Jonathan said thanks. So thanks, Jonathan.
Mhm.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Yeah.
And dude, it's
Thank
like
you,
it's
and
late
have a nice night.
it's late for you, so let you go.
Yeah.